You think you know when your teen is struggling? Most parents completely miss these 5 critical warning signs. They're not the dramatic outbursts or obvious rebellion you expect. They're subtle shifts that feel almost positive at first, until you realize what's really happening. Studies from Stanford's Developmental Psychology Department reveal a startling truth. 73% of parents misread emotional withdrawal signals in their teenagers. By the time most families recognize true disconnection, it has already created lasting damage to trust, communication, and family bonds. Today, I'm going to show you what family psychologists and adolescent development specialists have discovered: the hidden patterns that separate temporary teenage moodiness from genuine emotional withdrawal. These aren't just behavioral changes, they're protective mechanisms your teen develops when they feel fundamentally misunderstood or unsafe to be authentic within the family system. The research is clear. Families who recognize these early warning signs can completely reverse disconnection patterns. But those who miss them often face years of increasing distance, conflict, and broken communication. The difference comes down to understanding what you're actually looking at when your teenager changes. Let's start with the most deceptive sign, something that feels like parenting success until you understand its true psychological purpose. Why conventional parenting wisdom creates disconnection. Before we examine the specific warning signs, we need to understand why traditional parenting approaches often backfire during adolescence. Most parents focus on behavioral compliance and external achievements while unknowingly creating emotional disconnection. Research from Harvard Center on the Developing Child shows that adolescent brains are fundamentally wired for emotional intensity and authentic self-expression. When family environments consistently prioritize control over connection, teenagers develop sophisticated protective strategies that maintain surface functioning while completely withdrawing their authentic emotional presence. Dr. Daniel Siegel's groundbreaking work on adolescent neuroscience reveals that the teenage brain requires emotional validation and genuine understanding to develop healthy relationship patterns. When these needs are consistently unmet, teens create psychological distance to protect their developing sense of self. The tragic irony is that well-meaning parents often increase control and expectations precisely when their teenager begins showing signs of struggle. This creates a cycle where increased parental pressure generates increased teen withdrawal, leading to more parental concern and even greater attempts at control. Understanding this cycle is crucial because the 5 warning signs we're about to examine are actually adaptive responses to feeling emotionally unsafe or fundamentally misunderstood within the family system. Sign 1. Surface compliance. The first indicator of emotional disconnection is strategic agreeability. Your previously argumentative teenager suddenly becomes remarkably cooperative. No more battles about chores, curfew, or homework. They agree quickly to your requests and seem to follow rules without resistance. This feels like victory. Finally, your parenting approach is working. Your teen has matured and learned to respect family expectations. But UCLA's research on adolescent emotional regulation reveals something disturbing. Surface compliance often signals emotional shutdown, not genuine cooperation. Here's what's actually happening psychologically. When teenagers feel their authentic thoughts and feelings are consistently dismissed, criticized, or punished, they develop protective compliance. They learn that agreement eliminates conflict, even when that agreement is completely hollow. Dr. Patricia Hertz from Harvard Center for the Developing Mind explains this phenomenon. Adolescents who feel emotionally unsafe develop what she calls surface functioning. They perform the behaviors that keep parents satisfied while completely withdrawing their genuine emotional presence from family interactions. Consider Sarah, a 16-year-old who spent months arguing with her parents about everything from music choices to friend selections. Suddenly, she stopped arguing entirely. She agreed to family activities without complaint, followed curfew without negotiation, and seemed perfectly compliant. Her parents celebrated this maturity. What they didn't realize was that Sarah had learned that expressing her authentic preferences led to criticism and conflict. She developed a protective strategy of agreeing externally while completely disconnecting emotionally. She stopped sharing her real thoughts, feelings, and experiences with her family. The critical difference lies in emotional authenticity. Healthy cooperation includes occasional disagreement, negotiation, and emotional expression. Surface compliance eliminates all of these. Your teen becomes a performer in their own family, showing you what you want to see while hiding their real thoughts, feelings, and struggles. Watch for these specific patterns. Your teen agrees too quickly to requests that should naturally generate some resistance. They stop initiating conversations about their preferences or opinions. They respond to family discussions with minimal input, defaulting to whatever position creates the least friction. Most revealing is what happens during natural conflict moments. Healthy teenagers occasionally push back against parental decisions, and not from disrespect, but from developing their own identity and values. Emotionally disconnected teens avoid these conflicts entirely, even when the family decision genuinely affects them. The observable consequence is devastating. You lose access to your teenager's real thoughts, concerns, and developmental struggles. The relationship becomes transactional rather than relational. Your teen learns to hide their authentic self from the people who should know them best. Sign 2. Emotional flatness. Second disconnection indicator is the absence of emotional range in a previously expressive teenager. Your child who once shared excitement about friends, frustration about school, and sadness about disappointments now responds to everything with the same neutral tone. This emotional flatness extends beyond normal teenage moodiness. It's a comprehensive dampening of emotional expression that affects all areas of their life. They stop getting genuinely excited about activities they previously enjoyed. They don't express frustration when things go wrong. They respond to both good news and bad news with the same minimal reaction. Research from Harvard Center for the Developing Mind shows that emotional flatness in adolescence strongly correlates with depression, anxiety, and family disconnection. When teenagers consistently suppress their emotional responses, they often lose access to the full range of human feeling. The psychological mechanism involves emotional numbing as a protective strategy. If expressing authentic emotions consistently leads to dismissal, criticism, or family conflict, teenagers learn to shut down their emotional responses entirely. They develop what trauma specialists call emotional anesthesia. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on adolescent brain development reveals the devastating impact of emotional suppression. The teenage brain is specifically designed to experience intense emotions as part of identity formation and social connection development. When this natural process gets interrupted, it affects their ability to form deep relationships throughout their life. Consider Marcus, whose family valued emotional control and logical thinking. When Marcus expressed excitement about art projects, his parents redirected conversations toward more practical academic subjects. When he felt sad about friendship conflicts, they offered immediate solutions rather than emotional validation. Gradually, Marcus learned that his emotions weren't welcome in family interactions. He developed a flat, controlled, emotional presentation that his parents interpreted as maturity. They had no idea that Marcus was systematically shutting down his emotional world to fit family expectations. The family context often involves well-meaning parents who feel overwhelmed by teenage emotions. Perhaps you've responded to your teen's intense feelings with advice, minimization, or attempts to fix their emotional experience. Maybe you've criticized their emotional responses as dramatic or overreactive. The observable consequences include loss of spontaneous emotional sharing, robotic responses to family interactions, and decreased engagement with activities that previously brought them joy. Your teen becomes emotionally unreachable, even during moments that should naturally generate strong feelings. Most concerning is the long-term impact on their emotional development. Teenagers who learn to suppress emotions during this critical developmental period often struggle with emotional intimacy, authentic relationships, and mental health throughout their adult lives. Sign 3. Family victimization. Narratives. The third disconnection indicator is your teenager consistently portraying family relationships as the source of their problems to outside sources. Friends, teachers, extended family members, or counselors hear detailed stories about how parents don't understand or make everything difficult. This pattern differs from normal teenage complaints about parental rules. It's a systematic presentation of family dynamics that positions parents as fundamentally harmful to their well-being. Your teen develops elaborate narratives about family dysfunction that may contain partial truths, but lack essential context. Research from the University of Rochester on adolescent identity formation shows that teens who feel genuinely heard and understood at home rarely develop these external victimization narratives. When they do complain about family rules or conflicts, the complaints include acknowledgement of parental care and family complexity. The psychological function involves seeking external validation for internal emotional experiences. When teenagers feel their perspective isn't valued within the family system, they seek understanding and support from outside sources. Unfortunately, this often involves presenting one-sided stories that increase outside sympathy while decreasing family connection. Dr. Reed Larson's research on family communication patterns reveals that teens who develop family victimization narratives often live in families where emotional experiences are consistently invalidated. They learn that their internal world isn't acceptable to their parents, so they seek acceptance elsewhere. Consider Jessica, whose parents focused heavily on her academic performance and college preparation. When Jessica struggled with anxiety about school pressure, her parents responded with motivational speeches about hard work and future success rather than addressing her emotional experience. Jessica began telling teachers and friends that her parents only cared about grades and never listened to her feelings, while her parents genuinely loved her and wanted her success. Their communication patterns had taught Jessica that her emotional world wasn't valued at home. The family context typically involves communication patterns where parents focus primarily on behavior, correction, rather than emotional understanding. Perhaps family conversations center around what the teen should do differently, rather than understanding what they're experiencing internally. These narratives serve multiple psychological functions. They provide external validation for internal pain. They create a sense of alliance with sympathetic outsiders. They allow teens to maintain their sense of being fundamentally good while explaining their family difficulties. The observable consequences include erosion of family reputation in your community, increased seeking of external validation from potentially inappropriate sources, and family loyalty conflicts. Your teen begins viewing family as the problem and outside relationships as the solution. Most damaging is the reinforcement cycle. As outside sources validate the teen's family complaints, they become more convinced that their family is truly dysfunctional. This makes them less likely to engage authentically in family healing efforts. Sign 4. Resource extraction without connection. The fourth disconnection indicator is your teenager utilizing family resources while actively minimizing emotional investment in family relationships. They depend on family housing, transportation, financial support, and practical assistance while avoiding meaningful interaction or contribution to family emotional life. This creates a fundamentally transactional family relationship. Your teen views family as a resource provider rather than an emotional community. They participate in family activities only when required and contribute minimal energy to family bonding or mutual support. Research from the University of Virginia on secure family attachment shows that emotionally connected teenagers naturally balance receiving family support with contributing to family well-being. They offer emotional support to family members, participate willingly in family traditions, and show concern for family relationships. The psychological mechanism involves protecting emotional energy by minimizing investment in relationships that feel unsafe or unrewarding. If family interactions consistently feel critical, demanding, or emotionally unsatisfying, teenagers learn to take what they need practically while giving as little as possible emotionally. Dr. Mary Ainsworth's attachment research reveals that this pattern often develops in families where love feels conditional on performance or compliance. Teenagers learn that family approval depends on meeting external expectations rather than being authentic, so they minimize authentic engagement. Consider David, whose family provided excellent material support, but focused conversations primarily on his achievements and future plans. Family dinners involved discussions about grades, college applications, and career goals rather than David's interests, friendships, or emotional experiences. David learned to extract what he needed from family: financial support, transportation, college planning assistance, while investing his emotional energy in friendships and external activities. He participated in family requirements while avoiding genuine emotional connection. The family context frequently involves parents who focus heavily on achievement, behavior, or family image while providing limited emotional attunement. Family interactions center around logistics, expectations, and problem solving rather than emotional connection and mutual understanding. The observable consequences include decreased family loyalty, increased focus on external relationships, and utilitarian approach to family participation. Your teen engages with family only when they need something or when participation is mandatory. Long-term impacts include difficulty forming genuine emotional intimacy in adult relationships and tendency to approach relationships from a resource exchange perspective rather than emotional connection perspective. Sign 5. Calculated emotional distance. The fifth and most concerning disconnection indicator is deliberate behaviors designed to create emotional space through systematic conflict or withdrawal. Your teen begins testing family limits, provoking arguments, or creating drama specifically to justify increased distance from family relationships. This differs from normal adolescent boundary testing or identity development conflicts. It's strategic behavior designed to make family relationships feel impossible or unrewarding, thereby justifying emotional withdrawal without taking responsibility for the disconnection. Research from UC Berkeley on adolescent individuation processes shows that healthy separation involves maintaining emotional connection while developing independence. Unhealthy separation involves creating distance through conflict, withdrawal, or systematic relationship sabotage. The psychological function involves managing overwhelming emotions about family relationships. If your teen feels both desperate for family connection and convinced that authentic connection is impossible, they may create conflict to make the distance feel logical rather than painful. Dr. John Gottman's research on family conflict patterns reveals that teens who engage in systematic distance-creating behaviors often feel trapped between needing family approval and believing their authentic self is unacceptable to family. Consider Rachel, who began systematically violating family rules in ways that guaranteed consequences. She missed curfew by exactly 15 minutes multiple times, used inappropriate language when parents could hear, and created conflicts during family gatherings. When parents responded with punishment or criticism, Rachel used these responses as evidence that family relationships were fundamentally problematic. She created a logical reason for emotional distance while avoiding the vulnerable work of authentic emotional connection. The family context typically involves high family stress, unrealistic expectations, or communication patterns that make emotional safety impossible. Your teen may have learned that a family conflict is more manageable than family vulnerability. These behaviors often escalate systematically. Your teen might start with minor rule violations that create predictable consequences. When parents respond with punishment or criticism, they use this response as evidence that family relationships are fundamentally problematic. The observable consequences include increasing conflict cycles, family stress escalation, and creation of logical reasons for emotional distance. Your teen develops what feels like justified resentment toward family, while avoiding the vulnerable work of authentic emotional connection. Most concerning is the long-term pattern development. Teenagers who learn to manage relationship anxiety through conflict creation often carry this pattern into adult relationships, consistently sabotaging emotional intimacy when it feels too vulnerable. Understanding the deeper psychology and long-term impact. These 5 signs aren't random behavioral changes. They represent a systematic pattern of emotional self-protection that develops when teenagers feel fundamentally unsafe to be authentic within their family system. Each sign serves a specific psychological function in managing the pain of feeling misunderstood, unaccepted, or emotionally unsafe at home. The underlying psychology involves what attachment theorists call defensive deactivation, when the natural human need for emotional connection feels too risky or consistently unsuccessful. Individuals develop strategies to minimize their emotional investment while still maintaining necessary practical relationships. For teenagers, this creates a devastating internal conflict. Their developmental need for family connection remains strong, but their experience teaches them that authentic connection is impossible or dangerous. The 5 signs represent different strategies for managing this impossible situation. Recent neuroscience research from Harvard Medical School shows that chronic emotional disconnection during adolescence creates lasting changes in brain development, particularly in areas responsible for emotional regulation and relationship formation. The teenage years represent a critical window for learning how to maintain authentic connection during conflict and stress. The long-term consequences extend far beyond the family relationship. Teenagers who develop these protective strategies often carry them into adult relationships, creating patterns of emotional distance, surface functioning, and relationship sabotage that affect their capacity for intimate partnerships, friendships, and even their own future. Parenting. Dr. Sue Johnson's research on adult attachment patterns shows that individuals who experienced emotional disconnection during adolescence often struggle with vulnerability, emotional expression, and trust in adult relationships. They may reproduce similar patterns with their own children, creating intergenerational cycles of emotional disconnection. The most important insight involves understanding that your teenager's emotional withdrawal isn't personal rejection. It's a protective strategy developed in response to feeling emotionally unsafe. The solution isn't convincing them to be more open, but creating genuine emotional safety that makes openness feel possible. The path forward, creating emotional safety. Transforming. Emotional disconnection requires understanding that these patterns developed as intelligent responses to feeling emotionally unsafe. Your teenager's withdrawal represents their best attempt to protect themselves while remaining in the family system. The first step involves examining your own emotional responses to your teenager's authentic self-expression. When they share opinions that differ from yours, do you become defensive? When they express strong emotions, do you try to fix or minimize their experience? When they struggle with decisions, do you take over rather than supporting their process? Creating emotional safety means developing your capacity to witness your teenager's full emotional experience without immediately trying to change, fix, or improve it. This requires managing your own anxiety about their struggles and trusting their developmental process. Remember that reconnection takes time. Years of emotional disconnection don't transform overnight. Small, consistent changes in emotional safety create the foundation for lasting family transformation. Your teenager's natural desire for family connection will begin to emerge when they feel genuinely safe to be authentic. The goal isn't perfect family harmony. It's authentic family connection that can withstand disagreement, conflict, and the natural challenges of adolescent development. When families achieve this emotional foundation, they become stronger through difficulties rather than damaged by them. Your family relationship can become deeper and more meaningful than ever through conscious attention to emotional connection. The teenage years offer a unique opportunity to transition from parent-child relationships based on control to family relationships based on mutual respect and genuine understanding. Start today by choosing one interaction where you focus entirely on understanding your teen's perspective without offering solutions or corrections. Listen for their emotional experience underneath their words. This single shift can begin transforming years of disconnection into authentic family connection.